Hi, this is Eric at Frog Valley Tropical Fruit Farm, and this is Florida Natural Farming. I'm going to look at mangoes and Imbe fruit, probably the other Garcinia syllabica, Garcinia hambromiana fruit. Just check the status. So I'm looking at my little yearling bull Romy. He likes to get tied up out here. He's getting a nice hump on him. His horns are starting to come in. So this is basically our fertility program here at Frog Valley Tropical Fruit Farm, and we're going to move all the operation of our miniature zebu off this site and just rely on natural growing with no animal inputs. Within the next 6 months, we're going to do that. We're still going to have the zebu, it's just that we're going to have them in a different spot because the state is trying to find a solution about the nutrient pollution in the Indian River Lagoon, and they are identifying cattle as a source of it, but everyone knows, and all the studies show, that it comes from septics, because 1 out of every 3 or 1 out of every 4, 1/3 of all houses in Florida are on septic. And we're on calcareous rock, and all the nutrients from our septic goes right into the aquifer and eventually leads to the Indian River Lagoon. Also, when we mow lawns, it affects the soil's ability to absorb water, or water and nutrients. So the nutrients and the water run right off and run right into the ditches, which run right into the lagoon. So that's where it comes from, not from the cows more in general, but the way they're managed. Because everyone mows hay fields or pastures here, so they get compacted and they don't absorb. The water can't move through it correctly, and if water can't move through the sand correctly from compaction, then nutrients can't move through it, and they move over it and off of it and into the lagoon. So it's a management issue. But look at this Imbe fruit. I mean, this tree is just insane, the amount of fruit it produces. Just insane. I believe it's attributed to the amount of miniature zebu manure that I apply. So I try to give this tree 2 big clumps of it. You know, if it blooms, then I'll give it a big pile of a daily compost. It's like a compost pile next to the tree, but small compost pile is hay and zebu manure, and of course urea from the urine. That's the zebu manure. But these are little fruits that are ripening a little prematurely, the smaller ones. I usually would never sell something like this. This fruit probably is not ripe yet, but it's not even bright orange yet. It's a little tart. But that tree is getting there, coming along. And look at the cashew. Somebody commented on my last video. Kind of haven't been in the mood to make videos, but I think maybe I've taken a nice break and feel a little rejuvenated, not so sucked dry creatively. So somebody said that we should comment that we should there's no seed in that Imbe. We should spray all our trees with water to get the powdery mildew off, but you have to ask yourself how you're being grown. Just like in modern medicine, the doctors fail to ask what you eat in a day or what you eat in a week. Write it down. I don't know anybody who's ever been asked what they eat when they go to a doctor, ever. And how you grow your mangoes determines your tree's ability to combat powdery mildew. So this is a sweet tart tree. It has quite a bit of fruit. A lot of our fruit has been stripped from these smaller trees. This tree is 4 years old. Most of our trees, the majority of our trees are 4-year-old grafted trees. Always dry farmed and never sprayed. It's just impossible for us to spray water on our mango blooms. And I don't want to add any excess water. It's going to affect the system, the high pH water from our aquifer. And I don't have hoses to go around. So, but you can see the bite in the mangoes. They've been stripping the trees, especially in areas where I know that I've seen lots of possums, which is along this little ditch area in the neighbor's yard here. So how you grow your mangoes determines the tree's ability to combat powdery mildew. And I've found that powdery mildew does not affect fruit set negatively here due to the way that we grow. So I've shown it clearly, and I'm going to show it on some Kezar mangoes and some Floragon mangoes and some orange sherbet mangoes later in the video. But right now this lychee's looking good. It was a drought when we had fruit on all our lychees, but so they dried up. But you know, I want these trees to get bigger, and the birds always get the fruit on our lychees. The citrus seems fine. So it's I wasn't too concerned about the lychees and their ability to set any fruit, since the creatures always get them, the birds. So this cashew tree is covered in fruit, and it produces a lot of fruit. I see a animal broke one of the main branches off up there, right there, which is, you know, that's just the fact of growing with nature. It's just the animals will eat your favorite tree and they eat my favorite tree and seedling and destroy your trees periodically. But I just plant more of them, and I have learned to not let it be my problem. So, but this tree is like going to have so much fruit on it soon. It's just amazing how much fruit this tree produces. I see lots of little cashews everywhere, and cashew is one of my favorite fruit. You use cashew fruit. It's the top part of the nut. The nut is the bottom part. The top is the fruit. And it gets quite plump and large. You can look at videos from last year on cashews that I did last, probably June or May video, monthly farm update, and see that the cashew fruit was quite large. And you get quite a bit of juice from one fruit. And it's really delicious. It's low sugar and high in magnesium, and it's quite, you could tell it's good for you. I love it. People want it. So look at our jackfruits are looking great. During the drought, during my monthly farm video last month, or this month rather, May, monthly farm update, you could see these jackfruits were like almost bare of any leaves, and now they're like completely fleshed out. These lychees, for some reason, these 3 lychees got affected by the drought severely, but they're starting to come back. I'm not worried about them. I'm not sure why that is. These particular lychees, it's not that we don't have mulch and stuff to protect the soil, because we dry farm everything, because the lychee down there is fine. It's just these particular 3, but there is a swale here and a pond there. So they raised this ground up when they did the swale. The ditch is what it is in this part of Florida. This is a ditch used for water harvesting in this pond, but our ditches never get any water in them. Sometimes when the water table is high, they will have water in them, but at the level of the water table. So here's a lychee that lost its leaves. It's getting them all back. That's just part of cellular regeneration. Much like intermittent fasting, or when you do exercise, if you're a human, you need a little, you need to stress yourself. Your trees are always under a stress state, or should be, in order to have healthy cellular function. So since they can't move and exercise, that's the way they exercise and get cellular activation. But if you're compromised your tree's ability to function normally with the use of how you manage, or by the use of how you manage this is an Imbe tree that's still flowering. It's the one I just showed. And I'm not even gonna look at the wax jambu. I just do not like the fruit. So it's like not even worth it to me to look at it. I guess I should, but there's a little cashew. We have about 200 little cashew seedlings growing here. I'm fairly certain that we're still gonna produce a lot of fruit. Once the cows move, and I'm not applying daily compost every day. This is an M4 mango. It has quite a bit of fruit on it. The creatures haven't gotten it yet. These trees all had severe powdery mildew. I showed them in my monthly farm update. Powdery mildew does not dictate whether or not we get fruit set. Some of the most productive trees have had the most severe powdery mildew. And like I said, if you have any doubts, go look at my monthly farm update in February to see. But that's because of how we grow, how you manage your farm. If you're using chemicals and your soil's compacted and use fungicides and you water your trees during drought and you protect them during cold, then your trees' cellular function is going to be greatly diminished, so it can't signal correctly during changes in from disease or pest or weather, because it's never had to work. So this is why trees that are always given water, or it's always in a warm situation where sorry, a deer fly was getting my ear. They succumb to drought. They will die as soon as you stop watering them, usually a lot of times. Or like in South Florida, Guanabana, that's, its entire life it's never been below 40 degrees or 50 degrees. And then all of a sudden one of our rare cold spells come through and it dips down to high 30s, then they die. But that hasn't been the case for us. So here's a Kwai Muk tree. Because we let our trees function normally and work with the environment in order to have cellular health, and they're not damaged from pollutants from the type of fertilizers we use. So what you feed your soil severely limits your tree's ability to handle abiotic or biotic stress, so biological stress from like insects or disease, or abiotic stress from weather. So this is a Kwai Muk tree that is flowering. This is a seedling Kwai Muk, and it was losing a lot of leaves, and it had a lot of sooty mold on it, but it dropped all those leaves during the drought, and now it has all these new leaves. And I'm trying to get this camera to function correctly because the flowers are quite small, and hopefully it'll be able to show them right there. Come on, camera, behave. But it's not, of course. Nope. There we go. There. Okay, so Where is it? There it is. There's the little flowers right there. Those little white things, those are the flowers. There's the old one right there that died during the drought, but it's flowering again. This is a seedling Kwai Muk that has fruited in the past. One fruit 2 years ago, and then last year it took off, and then this year it looks like it's trying to do a good flower. We have a grafted tree that has quite a bit of fruit on it, and it's still it's starting to flower again. So it's hopefully we'll send out another crop. A lot of our mangoes are blooming. I'm trying to think where there's some at. I think there's some up towards the front, and a lot of our mangoes, they bloom periodically throughout the year, and we keep adding more and more varieties to that list of mangoes that do it. Here's the star apples. They're looking good. There's our big fruiting achachiro tree. Everything's looking good. I knew it would. It's still stressful during drought. Don't get me wrong, drought stresses me out a little bit. The more I'm here, the longer I'm here, the less stressed I get, but every time a drought happens, it seems to affect different stuff sometimes. Some stuff is like impervious to it. Most garcinias don't even notice drought, like the achachiro generally do not get affected by drought. Though we grow more than 500 achachiro trees, and that's why we started this farm. And in the past, we've had one that got drought affected that was pretty large, but then after the drought, it grew like twice as big as all the other trees. So the tree that got affected by the drought the worst grew twice as fast after the drought. Like the next year, it was like twice as big as the others. And that's because during drought, in a normal, healthy tree, that can lose its leaves and have a slight dieback look to it, they're sending down roots deep into the ground when they do that. So they're still growing, but they're growing below ground, not above ground. So here's a Garcinia intermedia, and it's got lots of, I'm trying to make sure I don't step on anything because I have so much stuff planted around here. It's got so much flowers on it, and there's quite a bit of fruit on it. Little fruits, green fruits, lots of flower though. It's a continuous blooming Garcinia. Here's my seeds that I've been planting. They're coming up. This is that Theobroma bicolor. So here's our big fruiting cacao tree that I said looked horrible during the drought, and as you can see, it's getting new leaves on it. So I knew it would start looking good. It looked horrible. It had produced 30 fruit, and then it started, it looked like it was dying. But as you can see, the leaves are all coming out at the top of the leaves at the tree. And here's one that looks much better, one of the smaller ones that did the same thing. I've learned with cacao that that's normal during drought. Sure, if we watered them, would they continuously fruit or produce a lot more fruit? Perhaps, but would that affect their long-term health or their ability to adapt to changes in the environment? I'm certain it would, and probably is not the best thing for fruit trees, especially wild-grown fruit trees like this, or trees that have historically been grown indigenously. That's what I'm trying to say. So citrus, I find, is the same way. The whole problem with the citrus greening is management. Look at this citrus is in a huge bloom phase right now, and it's got fruit on it that are getting fairly big. I'm not exactly sure what this citrus is. I thought maybe it was a kumquat, which I guess can produce fruit all the time, but I'm not sure. It could be a sweet orange. I don't know. I don't mark any of my trees, my seed-grown trees, but this is the first time it fruited, and it's got quite a bit of fruit on it, and I see it's going to have a very big bloom again. So it's starting up, continuous blooming. And this tree does not have greening issues. The trees can look a little stressed after drought, which is what that is. But the new growth is all fine. Everything's fine on it. The fruit does not have greening. We grow like 15 types of citrus here, and we don't have greening. That's from management. It's completely 100% of management caused disease. It turns into a disease because it's gone systemic. So it was originally pest started, but now it's systemic because they do cuttings of the diseased wood, and they fail to look at how the trees are being grown. And here's another citrus that is like, I'm not sure if it's sweet orange or kumquat, but it's not blooming. But one by one, we're going to have all of our citrus producing fruit, all 15 species. But we can't sell citrus fruit unless they spray it. So we will never sell citrus fruit until they change that law because of greening. Look at this African locust bean. Looks really good. Here's a guanabana tree that it died from the drought, but those little tiny green buds that are all new growth coming out. So it's totally fine. Here's a achachuro that got drought stressed. Guaranteed this tree is going to be one of the fastest growing trees. In fact, it's got new growth starting on it right away. You gotta have a little stress in order to have a healthy plant, and keeping your plant what you think is ideal nitrogen, ideal micronutrients, ideal weather, ideal water, probably isn't the best thing for higher plants like trees. It's like, how can these other trees grow perfectly fine in Florida? So I'm standing in front of, this is a hybrid lemon drop mangosteen, and it's a sweet lemon drop mangosteen. Sweet. Have anybody heard of a sweet lemon drop mangosteen? They don't have a whole lot of fruit on them, but they're highly medicinal. And one thing I do know is that there's a lot of bioactive compounds of the molecules they use to make pharmaceuticals from, and you can get them from consuming the food and not take the pharmaceutical, or you could do what I do and make tea out of the leaves. I'm not telling anybody they should do that. Check with your doctor before you do it, but I make fruit tea leaves out of all of our fruit tree leaves, except for ackee. I go to the National Institute of Health to see what bioactive compounds. So I do like Garcinia humilis or Garcinia celebica health benefits, NIH, on a search on the internet, and up pops all these studies. Or bioactive compound. This fruit is so good. I couldn't figure out what was different about this hybrid Garcinia than the other Garcinias. It's a sweet variety. It still has an acid component to it, but it's not tart. It's just complex sweetness. It's delicious. We're getting mulberries on our world's best. This tree looked really bad during the drought, but it produced so much fruit, and it looks like it's going to produce a whole bunch more. Look at all that fruit. One thing about world's best, it's a producer of nonstop fruit. I'm not really a small fruited person. I do like to plant small fruited varieties of fruit trees, like this cherry of the Rio Grande that also has fruit on it now. This is a black cherry of the Rio Grande, but you can eat them when they're red. They're good. They should be bigger than this, but I think because of the drought, they're smaller. I'm kind of surprised that it produced another crop. Usually it just does one and done, but I'll take it. They're very good. I like them. I like that Eugenia for sure. I just wish it had big giant fruit. We have the other types that have the larger fruit, but they haven't produced fruit, and I'm not sure exactly where they are. There's a cashew. We do have about 200 cashews from our big producing tree. There's another one from last year. So here's a Garcinia syllabica. The fruit's starting to get big. I'm happy this is the first year this fruit tree has fruited and held fruit. It did set fruit 2 years ago, but it did not flower last year because of the back-to-back droughts we had. But I was worried this tree would drop its fruit during the drought, but as you can see, it clearly did not. And the fruit is supposed to be very good on this, so I'm quite excited about tasting that fruit. And it should be happening somewhat soon. Sorry, I'm like planting these seeds, but I do see quite a bit of fruit hanging while I'm down here. I see some up here. I see lots of fruits. More than I thought it had. Here's a Garcinia brasiliensis. I guess as a lemon drop, it's the sweetest one, but that hybrid Garcinia is better. No, this is Gardneriana. Sorry, I thought I was getting my trees confused. This is brasiliensis. It's in a full-on flower mode. Lots of fruit on it. It's pretty good. You can eat this brasiliensis skin and all. It's good, but it's more sweet than the other lemon drop mangosteens, but not as sweet as that hybrid we have, a sweet lemon drop hybrid. I think it's Garcinia brasiliensis and Garcinia gardneriana cross. This is Garcinia madruno. And there's a lot of fruit on this tree. For such a tiny little tree, it has a lot of fruit. It's been producing well. There's so much fruit on this tree. It's the best it's ever produced. This tree produces non-stop year-round. In fact, it's flowering again. Right there, I see flowers. I think most of the Garcinias produce fruit year-round. That's the case with that tree. It's produced most months out of the year, or every other month for sure. I think the last time I got fruit though was, I can't remember. It's been a while, so it did take a little break before the drought, but it was flowering during the drought. It was totally unaffected by drought. Most of our achachiros were not affected by the drought. It's a rarity to have one affected by the drought. But this year we had our oak trees get affected by the drought, like this little seedling oak tree. So it's totally natural for natives to do it. Why wouldn't it be totally natural for invasive species like Garcinias or mangoes to do it? But I've only seen mangoes do it where the soil is compacted, and I think probably the achachiros, that's the case there. I believe compaction is the root cause of all our problems. Here's our Platonia insignis is looking good. It's supposed to be a delicious fruit. So I'm coming over to this Garcinia tree because I noticed it had little tiny flowers or fruit on it. It's got some big fruit that are getting very close to being pickable. I'm gonna leave them on there because I think people are coming by. Hopefully more will ripen up. The Garcinia Livingstonii, you can it's one of the only Garcinias I know that you can ripen it off the tree. And you can ripen it all the way to where it gets a little alcohol taste to it. So when the skin gets wrinkly, eat these skin and all. I'm not gonna even try it. I did it earlier, but this has little tiny fruit on it also. So the little tiny fruit, in the past, it's only flowered. This tree is only flowered in the summer. This is the first year it flowered in spring, and that we got fruit set on it. And this camera is just not behaving. So there's a little fruit here. There's a little fruit. There's all kinds of little fruit down here. I mean, it really has a lot of little fruit on it. I think that they would continuously fruit if it wasn't so hot here. So I'm fairly certain that these little fruit that are on there are not going to mature, but I will show that in the future, and then I'll say, I was right. I'm pretty sure, because that's what's happened in the past. This would produce fruit and get lots of fruit on it, like these little fruits here. This is one that's almost ready. And then, but the weather is so warm. And then they drop the fruit. So I think a lot of times people have issues getting their Imbe to fruit, like in Arizona and stuff, because random male Garcinia Livingstonii trees do produce fruit on their own. So, but not very much. But if you have a huge giant male tree that's never produced fruit in Arizona, it's probably because of the heat, not because of anything else. People want me to sell sky and wood, but we are a fruit farm, and we're not allowed to sell plants because we don't have a nursery license. I don't want a nursery license. So here's these jackfruit. This little jack, I'm gonna go in here. This jackfruit, you know, it has fruit on it. This is a grafted tree, and these trees lost most of their leaves during the drought, but it did hold its fruit. We have jackfruit pretty much every month of the year so far, and it's a little nerve-wracking when you see your jackfruit lose all its leaves, but as you can see, they are like completely refoliated. Here's another Garcinia Livingstonii. If we had watered these trees, would they be able to produce more fruit? Probably, most certainly, but would these trees be affected by the cold temperatures we get here this far north? Definitely, they would be affected by the cold temperatures if you're providing water year-round to your tree. Drought stress and cold tolerance are pretty much the same in trees around here. So trees that are cold stressed or drought stressed, trees that are drought stressed that suffer dieback because of the compaction, are the trees that get that die because of drought or get frozen because of frost. But once the compaction is fixed, and as long as you're letting your tree exercise by letting it adapt naturally and able to signal to its environment with changes in the weather, it should be able to survive. It'll have a stronger cellular signaling ability, so that when that freeze does come along, because you haven't been watering it, it's been practicing that ability to signal from its leaf tip to its root zone on how to function. Then its ability to overcome drought stress and freeze is greatly enhanced. I just firmly believe that. And you know, of course, how your tree is started. So you got to start them. Look at this male Garcinia syllabica tree is completely in full bloom. So I'm hoping that female Garcinia humbromiana, syllabica, Seashore Mangosteen, whatever you want to call it. This problem with Garcinias, they have too many names, and then people make up new ones in order to sell them. It's a major problem. I saw that Anderson Tropical had some new Garcinias, a red one and another one, but they're both described as sour fruited varieties, which isn't something I would generally buy, but I'm thinking maybe I should get them. I don't know. I can't seem to stop myself. I keep adding more and more. We got about 25 Garcinias. Look at how healthy this tree. Now, people say that Garcinia syllabica is the most drought tolerant, or is a very drought tolerant tree, but yet the Garcinia syllabica suffer just like that achachuro, but it is surrounded by a path, which is compaction. So that affects its ability to handle drought stress, because its roots are compacted in cement-like soil. And when it dries in Florida sand, especially if you've used calcium carbonate infused water we have here, the sand becomes cement. So that hinders it. So here's another one of our jackfruits, seedling jackfruit that had flowers on it in the winter. Here's this jackfruit looked the worst, but it has zero dieback. It has growth all the way up to its tips. So here's one of our mangoes that has flowers on it and it also has larger fruit on it. A lot of this is a super Julie tree. It's a fruiting, multiple crops a year, but you know how mangoes will not set fruit in warm climates? Most varieties, just a few varieties will do it. That's what happens here. So it may get a big bloom, but because it's so hot this time of year, it's gonna be June, but there's little mangoes on it. The fruit will drop because it's too hot. Just like I don't know why it took me this long to figure that out, but because I was like, why aren't I getting a huge crop off my late repeat blooming mangoes? Because it's a fairly good sized bloom. If it was in more shade, it would probably be able to plant set more fruit. So it's shade and sunlight, amount of sunlight. I don't know, when they fruit in the summer, like that, or, late spring, it's basically summer. It's been so freaking hot here. Then that's a jackfruit. There's a sapodilla. The creature's got every last sapodilla except for one off this tree and broke a bunch of branches in the process. So here's a Florigon mango. So this mango is one of the mangoes in my January monthly farm update video that I showed, February probably, was covered in powdery mildew, but yet look at all the fruit on this tree. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it has a lot of fruit that is dropped off, but this has too much fruit on this one branch. This is all one branch, all this fruit. I was very worried about this fruit on this tree. The creatures aren't up here along the road, so they have not attacked this tree, but this Florigon tree is just loaded. And another tree that's loaded is this Kezar tree. There's even more fruit on it. I bent this branch over onto this branch so that I could get all the fruit that is here without breaking the branch, because this tree had so much fruit on it, and this tree was covered in powdery mildew. That's why I'm saying it's not the mildew and the fungus that is going to keep your tree from producing fruit. It's the management that you're instilling on your farm system. So using chemicals damages the mitochondria of your tree. So its natural ability to signal and overcome plant pathogens is greatly diminished. So, I mean, this is a tiny little tree and it has 30 fruit on it at least. I mean, it is not powdery mildew that causes the fruit. Sure, it can be if the tree's not being grown under healthy conditions. It's just like us. If we're eating a lot of stuff and a pathogen, a lot of junk, and we damage our mitochondria with glyphosate and the American diet of processed food, then our ability to overcome COVID was diminished because of our diet, a lot of it. It's the same thing, but doctors don't look at that, and agricultural people that like to grow, they don't look at what you're feeding your plant. There's no studies on natural farming against industrial farming on citrus. Why? They don't even look at it. Nobody's ever contacted me here. So, yeah, I don't do the trials and stuff like that, but I can observe and read and learn what's going on and put things together, obviously. So here's a longan. Got fruit on it. It's this tree shampoo. This one Doesn't have any fruit on it, but it's a small tree. Here's a Florigon tree. It also had powdery mildew all over it. Doesn't have quite as much fruit, but there's still a lot of fruit. This is where the possums are not at. They're not up by the road, so they haven't wreaked havoc on my mangoes. I don't think it's going to be a very good mango year for sales, just because this particular tree did not flower this year. It flowered right here. This is Nam Doc Mai, which kind of surprised me, but Nam Doc Mai flowers off seasons for us. So I'm not giving up hope on this mango, because a lot of times our mangoes that get new flower or leaf like this, new growth, will then start flowering out of the new growth. So I can't show it every single time I come across it, but in every video, it's just, there's too much information that I can't go over it in every single video. Is that Super Julie tree? That's its 6th bloom on this tree. So I'm going to end this video by looking at a peach cobbler mango, because it's in full bloom, and peach cobbler has been one of my favorite mangoes. And since I want to like show the mangoes during, there's a male Humbrommy on a tree, it looks great. I want to show them the mangoes that are in like a summertime bloom phase, because you know it's going to be June in a couple days, and June here is basically summer everywhere else. So it's been hot. It's been like 95 degrees, exceptionally hot. Heat index of like 103, I guess. And bananas are looking good. We've been getting some rain, so everything's starting to look quite good. We got about an inch yesterday. We got a few inches 2 days before that. We've been getting rain sporadically, so that's nice. So yeah, June is like a warm month. It's our citrus looks so good. I'm just amazed at how healthy you can grow citrus if you stop poisoning your tree from birth. So basically, with a sterilized seed is damaging the mitochondria. That's what it does. And if you're growing in water-soluble fertilizers, you're going to damage the mitochondria and your tree's future ability to signal to its environment to overcome plant pests and plant pathogens like greening. And that's the only thing I can figure. It's not the oak trees that do it, because we did have one tree that got, it's not the oak trees alone, it's the combination of everything. So one substance or one item isn't going to save the tree from death. That's why they use so many poisons on citrus. So look at this peach cobbler mango is in a full bloom, and it has big fruit on it. That's why I say they do more than one crop a year. The creature's got a lot of the fruit off this tree. It hangs out in this area. Hopefully they're not going to get my guanabana, but it does have some fruit. It definitely has a lot of flower going on, more than the average. There's a nice guanabana fruit I'm looking for. They got all the orange sherbet off this tree. All of it, except for 1, 2, I think. 1, 2. Oh, so sad. There's an orange sherbet they have not found yet, thank God. I don't know why. They got all the fruit off here but 2. So it wasn't the powdery mildew. And I showed these trees and they were definitely covered in powdery mildew. But there's a lot of fruit on this little tiny tree. Yeah. Anyway, this is Eric at Frog Valley Tropical Fruit Farm, and that's kind of our mango update. I don't think we're going to have a lot of fruit to sell as far as mangoes go this year. Definitely I'm going to have enough mangoes for myself, which I think is the most important thing. But, you know, I usually like to offer some publicly. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do that this year, because we've never been affected by so much possum destruction on our fruit. I like the possums. I would never think about trapping them. Eventually the trees are going to be so large, just like on the lychees, that the birds and the possums are not going to be able to get everything. But we're a young farm. We've been here 8 years, and we grow everything dry farmed, and I had to figure it out on my own. I had to like teach myself what's going on. And I do these videos to try to explain and help other people do it so that they can try to help Florida. And it'll be interesting to see in the future, once we move the cattle out of here, how much fruit production we're going to get. So I'm kind